welcome back to the finale of What If Iron Man was in Spider-Man No Way Home. It's been a long 2 months, I would say, when this whole thing was made. It just took me a really long time to get the story down. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. It all started way back when I did What If Tony Stark Had Lived in Avengers Endgame, and I was like, why not do Far From Home and No Way Home? So I do want to explain that the first part of the No Way Home with Iron Man was the prelude to this story, and this story really gets into it. I really tried to put a bow on it, and I wanted to make it the best that I could with what I had, because I had turned Tony a little bit more evil to the dark side. So anyways, I hope you enjoy, and let's get back into this fan fiction. Stephen Strange gasped. His body collapsed to the ground. Doctor Strange crawled, trying to get away from Tony. As this happened, Tony's radio crackled. It glitched, but it had told him that his Iron Legions killed Peter Parker. Stark's face then dropped after he was informed of the death. Then he walked over Strange's body, ready to kill Strange. A shield hit the back of Tony's head. Tony turned to his side to see Steve Rogers. Steve screamed Tony's name. Tony picked up Cap's shield, remembering when he gave it back to Rogers when they would defeat Thanos. Stark said he would take his family back before impaling the shield into Doctor Strange's body. If he couldn't have his family back, then everybody would pay. Rogers engaged in close quarters combat with Iron Man, who went mad. The fight continued for almost an hour until Tony gained the upper hand, stabbing a nanoblade into Captain America's neck. Rogers coughed. He was on the edge of death. Tony asked Steve for his help. He told him he never wanted to go down this path, but now he knows what it's like being in the villain's shoes. Steve choked, trying to get a word out before he stopped breathing. Tony realized what he had done. He looked at his silver hands, blood everywhere, and dropped to the ground. Doctor Strange was dead, and now his old friend Steve Rogers was dead, all because of him and how he failed everybody. Tony screamed, "Why? Why?" smashing everything in sight. Stark could hear the cries from outside as more and more of his Iron Legions rained on the city, killing innocent people who fought back. He glanced over at his perfect, superior machine that was destroyed by his former friends. Tony looked at his robotic arm, pointing it at his head. Before the impossible happened, another place, another time. A time when events went correct, where Tony Stark was laid to rest. Tony felt a shift in his house, a loud ringing noise from both sides. Stark screamed louder than he ever had before. Tony fell backwards, as if he did shoot himself. Maybe he was dead. All Tony could hear now was a TV playing in his room. Things looked different. There was no beer, no panic in the streets, and his Iron Legions were gone. The broadcaster showcased a battle between Spider-Man and a mysterious figure on the bridge. Tony's vision was blurry, but what he saw wasn't right. When he rubbed his eyes, Peter was just killed, but now he's fighting someone else. Stark opened the doors to his surprise that it was a lovely day out. He was shocked that the outside of his home was different. Tony walked closer to the lake, where he saw something floating. He felt calm and different about things, like if all of his problems have gone away. The floating flowers came closer to Stark, where he picked them up. In memory of Tony Stark, it said. Tony dropped the flowers. At the same time, Spider-Man in this universe had already casted a spell that would try and make everyone forget who Peter Parker was. After messing up the spell with Doctor Strange, not only did Peter try getting into MIT, but the Doctor Strange of this universe has created a spell that would send other villains and people to this universe. Whoever knew Peter Parker was being sent here. Peter finds himself caught in his web while fighting with Dr. Octopus. Ock asked, "Where is my machine?" before engaging in close quarters combat with Spider-Man. The fight continued. Ock had Peter right where he wanted him. Gaining some of Peter's nanotechnology, Ock said goodbye, but was shot with a unibeam in the back. Ock screamed in pain, his arms wailing everywhere before being knocked unconscious. "Hey kid." Peter turned his head to hear the impossible. It couldn't be. "Mr. Stark," Peter said, in a bone-chilling voice. Taking a good look at who was before him, Peter asked what was going on. Why was he here and who was this other guy? "Peter," Tony said, before the two hugged. At that moment, Tony in his mask had a tear going down his cheek. What had he done? Tony told Peter that he was not from around here. He didn't know what was going on, but he needed to find answers. Ock was down for the count as the two inspected him. Tony scanned Otto, where Tony found he didn't have the same signature, and that the readings indicated that this mysterious person was from another world. Peter couldn't make any sense of it. He knew the multiverse was real now, and laid before him was his old friend. Peter's spider sense went off, yelling for Tony to get down. A pumpkin bomb had rolled on the ground. Everything went silent. The bomb made a ticking noise, and it got louder with each passing moment, before a large explosion came from it. Tony looked up to see the man that was in his dreams. Ock woke up and ran to see that he was trapped in some magical room. Tony looked around and he too was trapped. He asked Peter to let him free until Doctor Strange came into the room. The man in the green suit laughed. The laugh made Tony's heart skip a beat, before everything around the three then changed. Strange explained that the spell Peter had ruined was leaking to everyone who knows Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and that there are still people who are still out there that need to be sent here to be sent home. Looking at all of them, knowing what he had done to the Doctor Strange of his world, Tony felt that he needed to keep quiet. Peter thought about it and realized what had happened. Peter asked for help, and Strange said that there was nothing he could do for him, and that he would have to clean up his own mess. Peter turned back to see Tony and Otto. Otto recalled knowing the man in the green suit. Peter asked who it was before being yelled at. He said that it was Norman Osborn, a brilliant scientist, but he became greedy and lazy.
Hello? It's Spider-Man. Come out to play.
Tony asked the kid for help. Tony yelled for Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange turned around and told Tony that he didn't want to hear his story and that there was enough to deal with right now. Him being here would cause damage in their universe. Peter looked back at Tony. He missed seeing his old mentor and knew that with Iron Man's help, they could bring all of the people here. Tony explained that Strange was right, but at the same time, he could be of use to help send everyone back. Iron Man then took his mask off, revealing all of the cuts and burns on his face. Peter said, "What happened to you?" Tony revealed the events of his universe. He started talking and told Strange and Peter how he lost his family to Mysterio and wielded the gauntlet to defeat Thanos in his universe. Doctor Strange told Peter that he could be lying about anything. They didn't want to trust him, but Peter was shocked, asking how he survived using the stones and that he died using the stones in this universe. Even Doctor Strange was confused. Maybe there was a universe after all where Stark lived. Peter wanted to listen more of the story, but Strange told him that there wasn't much time left, equipping Peter with a mystical box that would allow him to catch and capture any of the people in their universe. Peter still asked Doctor Strange for help, where Strange decided that if this version of Iron Man were true, he would need to prove himself by letting him help Peter find the rest of the multiverse people. This changes the course of history, because Peter won't be gaining the help of MJ and Ned to find the rest of them. Doctor Strange said, "Don't make me regret this," before releasing Tony from his imprisonment. Tony said that he wouldn't regret this. Peter and Tony went off to find one of the villains. Peter asked Tony what happened to him in his universe. Tony told Peter that almost the same happened, but Mysterio never revealed his identity to the world because he had killed Mysterio beforehand. Peter kept silent for the rest of the pursuit. In the back of his head, Peter wanted to trust Stark, but he felt that something was amiss and couldn't yet figure it out. The duo figured that one of the multiverse people was in their location. But while they circled and scanned the area, Tony yelled for Peter to get down. A man rose from thin air. Peter asked if he was from a different universe before attacking Spider-Man and Iron Man. The man's powers were gravitating towards Tony's arc react. Tony dodged an attack from Electro, who started laughing. Knowing the power felt different, he started shooting large yellow bolts at Tony and Peter. Peter got shot in the back, screaming in pain, before Tony used his suit to throw himself into the bolts, overloading himself. A massive unibeam went into Electro's direction, knocking him down. Electro was dazed by the attack and was hit from behind by Sandman, who came out of nowhere. Sandman asked what the hell was happening. Peter screamed that he was from another universe, but could use an extra hand. The three of them then stopped Electro. Electro was losing his power. Tony started sucking the energy from him to power his suit. Tony laughed before Peter asked if he was killing him. Tony said, "It doesn't matter, kid. We need to do what we can." Electro screamed in pain before a massive explosion knocking Peter and Sandman back. Tony flew down, extending his hand out. Peter took his hand and asked what happened back there. Tony told Peter that some of these guys needed to be killed. It was something they needed to do. "I know you, Peter, and you would do whatever it takes to protect your loved ones, even if you needed to kill the person hurting them." Sandman asked Peter what he had in his hands. Tony said, "Just trust us." Before Sandman lashed out, he didn't know if he could trust them after he had just witnessed Tony kill somebody. Sandman got angry before Tony shot a massive blast that caused Sandman to turn into pure glass, where he was then shattered in front of Peter. Tony laughed. He knew all of their weaknesses, and with his help, they might allow him to stay in this universe. Peter couldn't believe it. He had let Tony kill 2 people already. Peter felt bad, but deep down, maybe he was right about killing. Peter, alongside Iron Man, came back to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Doctor Strange asked where the rest were, and Iron Man said that they took care of it and wouldn't need the box anymore. Strange gave Tony a weird look, but agreed to it. Their sacrifices were meaningless in the grand calculus of the multiverse. Peter's phone rang, and Tony told Peter to pick it up, and that he would wait for him later. Peter asked May what was wrong. Aunt May told Peter that somebody was here to see him. Peter's eyes widened. It was the guy on the bridge. Peter immediately hung up the phone. Strange asked what was going on, and Peter said it was the creepy guy who attacked them earlier. Tony said he would stay here in the Sanctum, as it might be a bit weird walking around like a dead version of Tony Stark. Peter nodded and ran to feast. Tony began to talk about how he wanted to stay in this universe when it was all said and done. Doctor Strange disagreed and told him that he would need to return to his original universe and complete the spell. "How would you stop me, Steven?" Strange turned his head. As Iron Man pointed his repulsors at him, Doctor Strange knew that something was amiss all this time, and letting him get closer to Peter was dangerous. Doctor Strange turned, but before he could do anything, he got shot. Tony laughed and told Strange that he already killed him in his universe. Strange fought back, but Tony's superior suit was much more powerful than Doctor Strange. The two got into a close combat before Strange used the magical blades to cut through Tony's mask. Anger fueled Tony. His love for his family was more powerful. He had a chance to see them again and live with them. Tony fought with an inch of his life, but Strange, while he was fighting, made a deal with the villains to help him in exchange for their lives. Ock and Lizard agreed. The two were let loose and ganged up on Iron Man. Tony easily cut through Lizard. The Lizard screamed in pain before being choked and slammed to the ground, while Otto manically rushed to help Strange. Tony backflipped over Doc Ock, easily shooting him in the back. Ock screamed, but the scream was so fast, as if you couldn't hear it. A loud thud could be heard. The body laid motionless. Doctor Strange slowly got back up and told Tony that one choice, one moment, could destroy an entire universe. Tony said if I could somehow go back and fix this, I would, but it's too late for me. I've become the very thing I fought against, and there's no turning back now. Screaming, Tony Stark ended the life of Dr. Stephen Strange. Every sound could be heard in the Sanctum, the drip of water, the blood that dripped everywhere. It was almost the same scene in this universe, but now just another Doctor Strange. Tony looked at his hands, blood pouring down them. What would Morgan think of her dad, the way he killed all of these innocent people, knowing her father would become a monster?